Hi, my name is Brittany Benito.
And my name is Rachel Amnaran.
Within this podcast, we're going to be analyzing chapters 38 through 57 of the novel Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens.
This novel depicts the story of Kaya Clark, a lonesome little girl abandoned by her parents, siblings, and the wider populace surrounding her, and her strength of character to build herself a life in the untamed marsh of North Carolina. Kaya's story exemplifies the potency of independence. Kaya manages numerous grown-up tasks while she is relatively young, since she has been on her own from the mere age of 6. With Jumpin and his partner, Mabel, as her only other forms of guidance, she uses what she has learned from her family in addition to what she witnesses in nature to navigate life on her own.
In chapter 38, it is stated, fidgeting, muttering, gossiping. The Marsh Girl, put up for murder. It didn't get any better than this. In this chapter, it has been 2 months since Kaya was detained on suspicion of murdering Chase Andrews. The fact that the great majority of her society is merely quick to conclude the worst of Kaya simply because she is different makes it abundantly evident very early in the chapter to what extent Kaya is despised by society. They have made fun of her for years, referring to her as the Marsh Girl and fabricating stories about her past. Through her trial, these biases are made evident and pose a risk of influencing the jury's decision for the case.
In chapter 39, Chase's true character is revealed. Chase, who is married, ideally seeks out Kaya to engage in coitus. Chase attempts to rape Kaya after she graciously refuses him. Chase ultimately hits Kaya while struggling to rape her. It is noted in the book it was just like Pa hitting Ma. By smelling like alcohol and assaulting her, Chase reminds Kaya of the relationship in which her parents had.
In chapter 40 of the novel, we are introduced to Rodney Horn, a witness in Kaya's case. At Horn's initial inclusion in the prosecution, he refers to Kaya by her derogatory label, Marsh Girl, revealing that he's already prejudiced towards Kaya merely because of the stereotype surrounding her that exists within the community. Horn uses the term mad as a mule chewing bumblebees to depict Kaya's actions against Chase in Cypress Cove, when she was hitting him because he had tried to rape her. By using this comparison, Horn successfully gives Kaya feral or animal qualities. By using such harsh and damaging language, Horn portrays Kaya as the predator, never once considering the possibility that Kaya could perhaps be the true victim, who was just defending herself from an assailant.
In chapter 41, Kaya states, sex under flashing neon lights marked only by blood smudged across the sheets like animal tracks. Essentially, Kaya utilizes analogies to nature to understand and deal with the world around her. In this quote particularly, Kaya is reminiscing on her shared time with Chase and utilizes the quote to represent the similarities between both human and animal mating culture. Furthermore, Kaya is aware that she cannot just report Chase to the police for harassment due to her previous ties with him. Everyone in Barkley Cove adores Chase, yet the same people despise Kaya and think ill of her. Kaya is aware that if she attempts to inform the community about Chase's harassment, the residents of Barkley Cove won't believe her and would instead use this incident to further stereotype Kaya because of her differences. This allows readers to see the complete degree towards which Kaya has been marginalized by society.
The quote, yesterday she had seen an eagle dive and twist toward a fish, appears in chapter 42 of the novel. Given that the residents of Barkley Cove are making every effort to connect Kaya with the murder of Chase Andrews, this statement serves as a metaphor for the predicament that is now occurring in Kaya's life. Kaya is compared to a fish in the simile, while the residents of Barkley Cove are represented by eagles, rushing down to try to convict Kaya.
In chapter 51, it is stated that the language of the court was, of course, not as poetic as the language of the marsh. Yet Kaya saw similarities in their natures. The judge, obviously the alpha male, was secure in his position, so his posture was imposing but relaxed and unthreatened as a territorial boar. Kaya learned to understand her surroundings via nature as she lived among it and adapted to its conditions as a result of being abandoned at such a young age in the marsh. In this quote, we can see that Kaya attempted to compare what she knows to what she doesn't. when she was away from nature and in an unfamiliar courtroom. Kaya notices parallels between power relationships that take place in the courtroom and those in the wildlife community.
Kaya and Tate had ultimately overcome their challenges and created a life together by chapter 57 of the novel. Unfortunately, Jumpin passes away, as we learn later in this chapter. Kaya looks at Jumpin as a father figure in the lack of a true parent. She is eventually able to appreciate how crucial he was to her life after his passing, which ultimately aids her finally accepting her mother for abandoning her.
The quote, she knew the years of isolation had altered her behavior until she was different from others, but it wasn't her fault she'd been alone. Most of what she knew she learned from the wild, appears in chapter 57 of the novel. Essentially, while Kaya's animalistic instincts help her to survive, they also set her apart from the rest of humanity. Her reputation in Barkley Cove is one of being weird, reclusive, and predatory. The irony of Kaya's predicament is that because of her social seclusion, she seems wild. Because she has been abandoned by her family one by one and is shunned by the community, she is forced to learn from the surrounding wilderness without much interaction from people. The more she was shunned by the community for being different, the more untamed and isolated she grew.
Kaya tragically dies at the age of 64 while out on the water in chapter 57. Readers may observe the extent to which the story around Kaya changed following the trial by the fact that the whole community of Barkley Cove attended her burial. Because of her financial status, people used to make inaccurate judgments about her, but now they appear to appreciate her.
The importance of poetry in Kaya's life is made abundantly obvious throughout the narrative. Kaya uses poetry to express feelings and events that are otherwise difficult to express. Kaya relies on Amanda Hamilton, the novel's poet, to help her get through her difficult moments, such as when she is accused of killing Chase Andrews. At the end of the novel, shortly after Kaya's death, Tate uncovers concealed poetry obscured in a hidden place in Kaya's home. This reveals that Amanda Hamilton, Kaya's favorite poet and the person she most commonly discusses, is actually Kaya herself. Kaya used the fake identity to conceal her real identity while she expressed her feelings about popular subjects ranging from nature to love.
Through going through her poetry, Tate finds an unpublished poem titled The Firefly. The poem begins as such. Luring him was as easy as flashing valentines. But like Lady Firefly, they hid a secret call to die. A final touch, unfinished. The last step, a trap. Down, down he falls, his eyes still holding mine until they see another world. This poem is crucial to the plot of the novel since it establishes Ty's culpability as a killer of Chase Andrews.
Essentially, all throughout the narrative, Kaya has been fascinated by the manner in which female insects entice their companions before harming them. Observing this phenomenon in nature taught her that sex appeal had an inherent influence, and she never thought of it as immoral, as she regarded it as a basic fact of nature. This belief holds that living things must act ruthlessly at times in order to thrive. When she realized Chase had become a danger to her well being, she coaxed him into a trap and murdered him, just like she had witnessed a female insect do to a male insect in nature. She seemed to think that this was just a strategy of survival. After all, she was aware that no one would take her word for it if she claimed that Chase was a danger to her. She was forced to deal with the situation on her own as a result, turning into a personified form of a female insect purely out of necessity.
Alongside the poetry that Tate finds, he also finds a small box with the shell necklace that was reported stolen from Chase's body once he was murdered. As we can recall, early in the novel, Kaya gifted Chase with a shell necklace. It is revealed here that the shell necklace is a literary symbol for her power and desires as a woman throughout the novel. When Kaya first presents Chase the necklace, she is in a desperate search for love. The actual nature of Chase is exposed as the two's relationship progresses. Chase is a miscreant in actuality, despite the fact that the community views him as a sweetheart. In essence, Chase coerces Kaya into having an intimate relationship before she's ready and, among other things, tries to rape her. Because of this, Kaya murders Chase in an attempt to protect herself. After murdering him, she takes the shell necklace that she gave him back. Kaya takes the necklace that she gifted Chase back, represents Kaya taking back the part of herself and authority she gave away.
Now it's time for Who's Done It. As we know, Kaya is arrested for the murder of Chase Andrews. When Kaya first gets told about the murder, she was at Jumpin, informing him about her return from a trip to visit her editor. As Jumpin was mentioning the death of Chase, he brought up the shell necklace and Kaya's behavior became suspicious.
Although she was convicted of the crime, there was never any hard evidence against her. The way the author portrayed Kaya's conviction was so that the readers would see her as wrongly convicted as well as targeted for being different. They would try to pull out all different types of information, even if it was hard to believe, in order to try to prove her as guilty.
Just right after she was released for being not guilty, the author gave the illusion that Tate was going to be arrested for this crime. We saw this when the cops went to where he was, but instead of being arrested, he was only being informed about the death of his father. It gave readers the suspense that maybe Tate was the murderer after all.
Well, that concludes this podcast. Thanks for listening. We had loads of fun, but now it is time to say our farewells. Live from the Truman Show. Good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Bye!